The manager laughed when the quiet stranger placed his nearly empty wallet on the counter and asked if he could pay the remaining balance later. What happened next would leave the entire restaurant silent. Nobody knew that the man standing there in a simple gray jacket had spent the last 10 years building the bank that financed half the businesses on that street. And nobody knew that he had come there that afternoon for a reason far more important than lunch. The stranger's name was Adrian Vale, though most people in the city knew him by another name, the unseen CEO of Meridian Crest Bank. At 43, Adrian had become one of the youngest bank CEOs in the region, but he rarely dressed like someone who controlled billions in financial decisions. He preferred simple clothes, drove himself when possible, and avoided the private dining rooms where executives usually gathered. He believed that money could reveal a person's character, but ordinary situations revealed it faster. That afternoon, Adrian walked into a small neighborhood restaurant called the Copper Plate. Sunlight streamed through the wide front windows, falling across wooden tables and polished floors. Office workers filled most of the seats, laughing over lunch while delivery drivers hurried in and out. Adrian had chosen the restaurant because he wanted to experience the place without announcing who he was. He had heard that Meridian Crest was considering a small business development program, and he wanted to understand how local business owners treated ordinary customers before the bank invested in the neighborhood. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one good decision can change someone's life, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner 2.0. Your support helps these heartfelt stories reach more people who need a reminder that compassion still matters. Adrian took a seat near the window and ordered a simple lunch. While waiting, he watched the restaurant carefully. The servers moved quickly, but one young waitress seemed to be struggling more than everyone else. Her name tag read Mara Ellison. She looked about 26, with dark curly hair tied loosely behind her head and tired eyes that suggested she had barely slept. She apologized whenever she was a few seconds late, even when nobody had complained. Adrian noticed that she quietly paid for a child's meal when a mother realized she had forgotten her wallet. The manager, a sharply dressed man named Gideon Rusk, saw what happened and immediately called Mara aside. Adrian couldn't hear every word, but he could see the manager's expression. Mara lowered her head, reached into her pocket, and nodded. A few minutes later, she returned to work as if nothing had happened. When Adrian's meal arrived, Mara placed the plate carefully in front of him and apologized for the delay. Adrian smiled and told her there was no need to apologize. She looked surprised by the simple kindness. He ate slowly while observing the restaurant. Then something unexpected happened. As Adrian reached for his wallet, he discovered that his phone and bank card were missing. He remembered leaving his wallet in the side compartment of his car. He had brought only his phone into the restaurant, but his phone battery had died completely while he was waiting. He couldn't access his digital wallet, and there was no way to transfer money. Adrian calmly explained the situation to Mara. Her expression immediately softened. She told him that it was okay and that she could ask the manager to hold the bill while he returned to his car. Adrian thanked her, but before she could walk away, Gideon appeared. The manager looked at the empty space beside Adrian's plate, then at the man himself. Gideon's smile was polite but cold. Adrian explained that his wallet was in his vehicle and that he would return within minutes. Gideon crossed his arms and laughed quietly. He said that people always had stories when they didn't want to pay. Adrian assured him that he wasn't trying to avoid the bill. He simply needed a little time. Gideon glanced at Adrian's plain gray jacket and inexpensive-looking shoes. He seemed to make his judgment instantly. Then he said something that changed the atmosphere of the entire restaurant. He joked that if Adrian was really short on money, perhaps someone should start a collection for him. A few nearby customers looked uncomfortable. Mara immediately stepped forward and said Adrian had been respectful and that she believed him. Gideon told her to stay out of it. Adrian remained calm. He looked at the manager and quietly said that he had no problem paying. He only needed someone to trust him for a few minutes. Gideon laughed again. Then, with a mocking grin, he said that if Adrian was so confident about his finances, he would pay him double the bill if Adrian could prove he had a balance somewhere. The manager thought he had delivered a clever insult. He didn't realize that Adrian's bank managed the accounts of businesses worth millions. Adrian looked at him for several seconds. Then he asked for a pen. Gideon handed one over. Adrian wrote a number on the back of the receipt and placed it on the table. Gideon glanced at it and frowned. It was a bank account number. Gideon asked what it meant. Adrian simply said that if the manager wanted proof of a balance, he could call Meridian Crest Bank's corporate office and ask for the CEO. The manager laughed. He actually laughed louder this time. He told Adrian that CEOs didn't eat lunch in neighborhood restaurants wearing ordinary jackets, and they certainly didn't stand around arguing over a modest bill. Adrian didn't argue. He simply looked toward Mara. He asked her whether she had ever been treated unfairly because someone assumed they knew her circumstances. Mara froze. Her eyes lowered. She quietly admitted that she had. She explained that she was working 2 jobs because her younger brother, Elias, was preparing for college, and she was determined to help him. Their mother had passed away several years earlier, and Mara had promised that Elias would have opportunities she never had. Adrian listened without interrupting. Then Gideon interrupted them. He told Mara to stop wasting time and return to work. Something changed in Adrian's expression. Not anger. Disappointment. He asked Gideon whether this was how he treated employees who were trying to help customers. Gideon shrugged and said that business wasn't a charity. Those words echoed through the restaurant. Adrian stood. He thanked Mara for believing him and walked toward the door. But before he could leave, a black sedan pulled into the parking lot outside. A woman in a navy business suit stepped out and hurried through the restaurant doors. Her name was Celeste Rowan, Meridian Crest Bank's regional director. She looked around anxiously until she saw Adrian. Her face immediately changed. She walked directly toward him and addressed him as Mr. Vale. The restaurant went silent. Gideon's smile disappeared. Mara stared at Adrian in disbelief. Celeste explained that Adrian's executive assistant had been trying to locate him because an urgent board meeting had been moved to the afternoon. Gideon looked from Celeste to Adrian. Then he slowly realized who was standing in front of him. The CEO of Meridian Crest Bank. The same bank whose financing had helped the Copper Plate renovate its kitchen 2 years earlier. Gideon suddenly became nervous. He apologized. He said he hadn't recognized Adrian. Adrian looked at him and replied that recognition wasn't the problem. The problem was how quickly Gideon had decided that an ordinary-looking customer was beneath his respect. Adrian then asked Celeste one question. He asked whether Meridian Crest had completed its review of the restaurant's business practices. Celeste hesitated. She explained that the bank had received several anonymous complaints about employee treatment and customer service, but the matter hadn't yet been finalized. Gideon's face went pale. Adrian didn't celebrate. He didn't threaten him. Instead, he asked Gideon to bring Mara forward. He asked her whether the restaurant had ever punished her for helping customers who couldn't afford meals. Mara hesitated, afraid she would lose her job. Adrian told her that she didn't need to be afraid of telling the truth. With trembling hands, Mara explained everything. She told them that Gideon had deducted money from her wages when she helped struggling customers. She explained that she had stayed silent because she couldn't afford to lose her job. The restaurant became completely quiet. Gideon tried to defend himself, saying he had only been trying to protect the business. Adrian nodded. He told him that protecting a business didn't mean humiliating the people who kept it alive. Then Adrian did something nobody expected. He didn't immediately destroy Gideon's career. Instead, he asked Mara what she would do if she were given the opportunity to run the restaurant. Mara looked stunned. She said she didn't know how. Adrian told her that leadership wasn't about knowing everything. It was about being willing to learn and treating people fairly. Celeste quietly explained that the bank was considering a community business initiative designed to help struggling local companies improve their operations. Adrian decided that the copper plate would receive an opportunity, but only if its ownership agreed to new employee protections and customer service standards. Gideon was removed from management pending investigation. Mara was offered the position of interim operations manager. But Adrian wasn't finished. He returned to his table and picked up the receipt. He handed it to Mara. Then he paid the bill himself. When she tried to apologize for what had happened, Adrian stopped her. He told her she had done nothing wrong. He said that sometimes the greatest proof of character was choosing kindness when nobody important was watching. Mara's eyes filled with tears. She thanked him. Adrian simply smiled and said that she had already done something for him. She had reminded him why he had entered banking in the first place. Years earlier, Adrian's own father had owned a tiny repair shop. A large company had once refused to give him a small loan because they considered his business insignificant. Adrian's father eventually managed to survive, but he never forgot how powerless he had felt when people judged him by the size of his wallet. Adrian had built his career around one promise: never becoming the kind of person who made others feel small simply because they had less. That afternoon, he realized the promise still mattered. Months later, the copper plate became one of the most respected small businesses in the neighborhood. Mara completed management training through Meridian Crest's community program. Elias received a scholarship and began college. The restaurant introduced a policy allowing employees to help customers facing genuine difficulties without being punished for showing compassion. And every Friday afternoon, Adrian quietly returned to the same table near the window. He still dressed simply. He still ordered the same lunch. And Mara always brought his meal with a smile. One afternoon, Adrian noticed a handwritten sign near the register. It read, "Everyone who walks through this door deserves respect." He smiled when he saw it. Mara told him she had put it there. Adrian said nothing for a moment. Then he told her that was worth far more than any expensive sign hanging in a bank headquarters. Before leaving, Adrian looked around the busy restaurant. Office workers were laughing, families were eating, employees were moving confidently through the room, and nobody seemed afraid of making a mistake. For Adrian, that was the real balance sheet. Not money. Not profits. Not account numbers. People. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness can appear in the most unexpected places, please like the video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner 2.0 for more emotional stories about compassion, second chances, and the power of doing the right thing. And before the story ends, leave a special comment: respect is the real wealth. Because sometimes the person we judge too quickly is the very person who has the power to change everything. But the greatest lesson isn't about how much money someone has. It's about how little it takes to treat another human being with dignity. Adrian Vale walked into that restaurant looking like an ordinary customer. He walked out having reminded everyone that true wealth isn't measured by what sits inside a bank account. It's measured by what remains inside a person's heart when nobody knows who they are.